Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Connectors for PLM 10.5 webinar. Joining me is Paul Hanlon and Hunter Erfman of our Professional Services Group, who will be handling the presentation and demo portion for today's session. Paul?
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone, and some good afternoon. And I think one or two, maybe even a good evening. What we're going to cover today, or how we're going to present this, is I'm going to go through a few slides outlining what we've introduced with Connector 10.5, which we released last week. Certainly in this particular release, as I can remember, we probably added the most I'll say enhancements or capabilities with this. I'm going to really get into details on 5 of them, but there are certainly these refer to the release notes for looking at everything that's included in this release. But I will start off with just highlighting again what we have is the unified CAD framework, which is really the foundation for our connectors with Aras. We have currently our connector 9.4, which is supporting the Aras 12 environment. Just a quick comment on this is we are planning on releasing at the end of the year a connector 9.5, which is going to be supporting SolidWorks 2024. The majority of the development and activity today is really focused around connector 10.5. And as we support SolidWorks, Inventor, AutoCAD, Creo NX with this, and with this release, we are supporting all the way up through release 28 of Aras Innovator. So just a quick comment, even though you do not actually see it like you do with a connector that sits within the CAD application, is underlying to our connector is a unified CAD framework. This is always continuing to evolve. This is always being updated. This is really the engine that drives the connector. This is where we sit within the CAD application to be able to pass through to Aras the proper information to be able to create the right items within Aras, relationships or whatever items. The key part of this is the UI. So once we add something within one connector, it is basically from the core part of the framework, which is then exposed or used within all the other connectors. So it's always a common UI, common framework between all our connectors. So now let's get into a little bit with the connector 10.5, supporting of Aras up to 28. Just a quick comment on, here are the supported versions. As we try to keep up in the fast paced releases of Aras, making sure that we're always trying to stay as current as possible. And that also includes with the CAD application. So we certainly have a very nice matrix that we manage internally of just trying to mix and match and make sure everything that is being supported is being, staying up to date. The key 5 enhancements that I want to talk about this morning, and Hunter is going to be presenting these in a few minutes. The improved unit of measure and BOM quantity, unregister and re-register, part number creation of family tables, improved display of the generation information within the CAD Explorer, and also retrieve hierarchy, and then BOM to CAD. And I'm going to highlight as I go through these, sort of what the current, prior to 10.5 functionality is, or how would you handle it before 10.5, and now what is 10.5 able to do. So these are really the 5 major improvements, enhancements, changes that we've made with the connector that you now have access to. So unit of measure and BOM quantity prior to 10.5, if we as a connector it was the CAD hierarchy that was driving everything. That's how we sort of dealt with it from day one. It would, whatever I built, when I did a store BOM of my assembly, okay, how many bolts, how many screws, how many components, how many library parts do I have? update the BOM based on the CAD. Well, yes, and that was not always the case because I wanted to create one screw, have one solid model for a screw, but I want to represent it 20 times. How do I do that? So again, working with Bill and Dave, yeah, there was, sort of a process you could go through. It was a little bit method code here and there to be able to do that. But now with 10.5, we've introduced a setting called BOM quantity driven by, and the settings are CAD, which is the default. This behaves just like it does in connector 10.4 in any of the prior releases, or PLM, or Aras. If I change it in Aras, if I update it in Aras, if I change that one screw and then, put in Aras, put in 20, don't overwrite that 20. It will always stay there. So Aras is going to drive it. PLM accept each, and then method. Talk a little. I think in my opinion, the two probably ones that we use most will be PLM accept each, and then the method. PLM accept each means if I have the unit of measure set to each, it is going to be driven by the CAD application. Whatever I model, when I do a store BOM, that hierarchy, and as always, if I have it, exclude from BOM, we adhere to each of the CAD applications and the definitions. So we're always doing the right, updating Aras with the right information. But this is, if the unit of measure is each, it's driven from CAD. But if it's something else as required, the screws, this is going to be as required for this BOM, then it is going to be done by Aras. So if I go in, put in 20 for it, it will always be 20. It now no longer will overwrite. If I do inches, it will, again, store BOM. It will not overwrite that quantity. That is PLM by each. The other one is by method. Well, you may say, well, that's great, but it does not provide me the granularity of, this hierarchy that I'm working with. It is whatever, a power unit. But a lot of these components in this power unit are maybe toolbox items and SolidWorks, are library components. Those should never, even though they may be each, they should always be driven by updating in Aras. This is where we provided the ability to have a method. And if you look at this method in Aras, you'll see a soft tech default BOM quantity driven by. The result of this is either PLM or CAD. So I can go through, even though it's set to each, I can do, when I do my store BOM, it will check it. Hey, method, there's a property that I want. Comes from this particular classification. It is this type. It's a property. It's whatever you define. That is going to be controlled by Aras. So you now have the ability to, even in the hierarchies, go through it with granularity, as granular as you would like, in defining it, the behavior as you want. So you have a lot of flexibility with this. And one other thing that Hunter is going to be showing is basically being able to map basically the part BOM, the quantity. So now utilizing something, like in SolidWorks, the quantity or length or whatever, where you can start doing some roll-ups and mappings of that. So I believe Hunter will be showing that in a few moments. So that's the enhancement for unit of measure and BOM quantity. It's been asked for a while. Now, the other one that's really been asked for a little while is I've registered something. I made a mistake and I need to re-register this. I need to change it. Or I got to give it a part number initially. It is a pre-production part number. I just want to go through it, but now it's gone through the right processes and whatever it might be. I now need to give all my data, all my hierarchy, all whatever. I needed to give it a production part number. How to be able to do that simply and easily. And if, prior to 10.5, you probably work closely with Bill Gilchrist on having the CAD admin tools, where you went in and exposed the CAD structure relationships, the part CAD relationships, and you sort of had to go through that just to clean it up. Now you don't have to do that. You in 10.5 through the register menu, you will now see two options: re-register and unregister. So what re-register does is I identify the item or the whole hierarchy, whatever, and then I say re-register. It basically is going to, think of it as setting it back to the beginning, to everything's unregistered, everything is green. So I now can I can set my production connector project, and now I can give everything production part numbers. It will leave all, the pre-production information and, the stuff that I previously had. It does not delete anything from Aras. It will all be there. But now I'm going to have a new hierarchy and the key. If I have when I do register rename set to true, it is going to rename the CAD files. So if I create a new production part number 001, the CAD file, I can have it as 001. As you remember, as you know, if you just store a CAD document today and then I register it later, there is no way of being able to rename the CAD document. So without going through hoops, but this now gives the ability to re-register that. It will rename the CAD file for this. The other option of this is the unregister. Really looking at it, I'll call it, very simplistically, it just really breaks the part CAD relationship from the part in the CAD document. Again, everything remains in Aras. It will look at the CAD document as being unregistered. So again, back to the current behavior. If I unregistered something and then selected register and give it a new production part number, the CAD file is stored in Aras. Do not rename it. That is the behavior of the connector. Where unregister, again, in my opinion, where it's going to become very useful and valuable is certainly for family tables. I screwed that up. I wanted to change that. It's got to be different. In this case, you can go and just select the unregister on the config or a bunch of configs or all configs, and then basically say unregister it. It breaks that part CAD relationship, leaves the generic as it is, as how that is registered, and then I can generate new part numbers that under the covers, it's going to be linked up to the generic. So that's where unregister, one use case dealing with family tables, or I just registered something, I don't know, separable assembly. Wait a minute, all the children of this assembly needed to have the same part number as the generic, but I just generated all new ones. I screwed up. I can then unregister it and then just re-register it. First I would use unregister and then register and just copy the generic part number and paste it in all the children. Now everything in that hierarchy, everything there will have the same part number. So that is the register and unregister. So you may be sitting there, it's like, okay, this is great. I don't have to deal with the CAD and Min tools, but this is this can be dangerous if we just have this ability to anybody can go and unregister or re-register. Yeah, it could cause a little bit of a havoc. So what we've done is there's, as everybody may know or should know, there's the SoftTech event handler that anytime the connector is run or any operations, it utilizes it. Out of the box, if you tried to select those menus today, they're deactivated. They're not active. We wanted to be able to provide the details, the granularity of who can do it, what can they do it to, because every company is different. Every division within a company's division is different. I need to be able to define who can do it, where can they do it, what they can do it to. So if you look at the default handler, which is just put out, we put a basically for you to look as a reference, it is the SoftTech event handler is what is run, not the default event handler. So if you go through it, I just picked out one area of it. You're able to provide who can do it. Here are the identities that is able to going to do the re-register or unregister functionality. Not until it's updated in the event handler, they're going to remain inactive. So as an example, maybe it's MCAD admin, maybe it's configuration management, maybe it's one or two people. Again, if I start registering parts and unregistering parts, again, that's got to be very, very, very carefully handled and managed. So again, this allows you to be able to do that. Also, if you look through this default event handler, you have only these types of parts, only this classification. Wait a minute, I cannot re-register or unregister a component, a part, a SLD, PRT, and PRT file. I can only do it with assemblies. And maybe it's even some more definition on that. So again, this is where you'll see in this example, some examples, some things where control, and then at the end of the day, it will determine who can run this, what they can do, or what they can't do, probably a better way of putting it, in terms of being able to unregister and registering it. The capabilities, what we've always, and we've had requests and, for the family tables, instances, Creo nested family tables, certainly, but, in any of them, any of the CAD applications. I want to be able to define more detail to the family table, part numbering generation for it. So we've added some out of the box defaults. We've added being able to resource setting that, yep, I want to be able to define, not maybe it is a separate, different type of a sequence. As you know, unless you generate a part number for a family table, it's going to be -001, -002. Now I can do whatever, basically whatever I want. You have the flexibility, really, of, just like how you can utilize a method for doing part number generation and whatever logic that you can come up with, you're able to do it here too. But there's, as you look in the documentation, there will be some default keywords that we've now introduced that now, again, will give you a little bit more flexibility and to the naming of the part of the configs. So as an example here, I've got a test 001, very exciting name, is I've got this to utilize the generic part number plus a configuration name. So in here, the generic part number is test 001, and then utilize the config. So now with that set, this is the result that I would get after I do the register of the family table. And again, just like how you register today, for this separate for the family tables, you can develop and define your own method for this. So next one, try to get to the demo as quick as possible here. Improve the display generation of the CAD Explorer. So basically, we've given, we've had the enhancements and some excellent discussions on how to improve it, the display, the knowledge for the CAD user. In terms of, okay, I'm working with this, but what is it really? And oh, by the way, what is, if there's something been updated in Aras, what's the generation of that item? So you're going to see two new columns that, if you set this to true, by default, set it default at false, is these two new settings. Sorry about that. Is to be able to show basically the referenced generation and then the current generation. And actually, a picture is usually 1,000 or 10,000 of my words. So here's these two new columns that you'll see. This will work for any baseline or any resolution on retrieving it. I personally believe it's probably in customer 2 is really based on the as saved baseline. So the reference generation is always looking at what is the as saved baseline of the root item. So in this case, even though I may be retrieving it in the current baseline, current resolution, look at in this case 117 SLD ASM, but look at it as saved of this item, this generation 1. The current generation is, in this case, it's going to be the current latest one that I'm retrieving is 2. And then the generation is, again, would be 2, which is the current one. So as I look at this, either in the CAD Explorer, and you also have in Hunter will show, I believe will be in the retrieve also. If I'm working with this assembly. And okay, I checked the CAD Explorer. This current generation is what is the latest generation of this item, 109, in Aras. So I'm working on this, but another user has now retrieved this, made a change, stored it, updated the generation 3. Another user went 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I look at this, refresh my CAD Explorer, this is going to show as 7. I'm working with generation 2. It is going to be, of this assembly is 1. So this is current generation is showing what is the latest version of that, or the generation in the assembly. You're going to see, again, in the retrieve hierarchy, you'll see this. This can be exposed if you have the resource setting. And again, it will show some, you'll be able to show some other information. This is, some of the things you'll see, and you'll see some highlighting. So, as you saw with the red, it's sort of like a hammer coming out of the screen and hitting you over the head. Hey, look at this. This is an example, where items are likely, to rebuild errors. That, I've retrieved this assembly. I'm working with assembly, but somebody else has made a change to it. Hey, if I just retrieve this part or update this part, I have no clue what this user did. There's probably going to be some made errors because they added this, changed that. So again, you look at, there's hopefully you'll see a lot better information display in terms of the new columns, and also the colors that you'll now see to really have the users, to focus quickly on any of the questions that they're working with. And then the last one is BOM to CAD. This is, I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. This is the ability to create a BOM in Aras, just create a part, an assembly, and then add in some part items. And okay, this looks good. And now I want to drive a CAD assembly, CAD hierarchy from this. There's currently in this first release, and I'll talk about this in a moment, this is more for, I'll call it an introductory testing. There is definitely some, I'll call them limitations, which we know, which we, again, we wanted to be able to put this out there. So, there's all sorts of examples. I get a BOM in from a CAD system. A BOM is being created from a system engineer, and how do I drive it down to the CAD hierarchies? All that stuff. So this is sort of to go, to start being able to do that. Again, for this is introduced for SolidWorks, Inventor, and 10.5. I'll talk about this again a little bit more in a little bit. Out of the box, again, this would be like the retrieve hierarchy in Aras. This would be right mouse button, automated assembly, like you have with hierarchy, you have now Essig PLM, BOM to CAD. Out of the box, this is not available. But you all have it. You just need to, as you see up on the screen, update the import file, and then you just need to import the package. Again, it's really for test, because we know there's some challenges. You really want to have a CAD document associated to the part item. There's a whole topic of transformation matrices. This is things that we've already been actively working on, and we're being able to reference template parts and doing it for, have a connector resource setting. Oh, for this project, I want to use these templates. For this project, I want to use those, and how we're going to manage and where we're going to be saving the transformation matrix. Of course, each CAD system is a little bit different in what they're doing. So, but we have a plan, and we're actually have already started executing on the plan. These are some of the things that we're looking to introduce with 10.6. But we wanted to provide it in the hands. A couple have already said, yep, this as it is would be absolutely perfect. Excellent. But again, I believe there's certainly some quick enhancements that we're making on this. And with again, the direction of this is being able to take a filtered BOM with effectivity or a variant, and then hey, I've created this product. Awesome. How do I get it into drive CAD from it? So that is where we're fast and furiously going on our part. There's a whole bunch of other enhancements, branching, and I'll just quickly fly through this. Improvements for the X properties. Now the store BOM, after I do, instead of being prompted, do you want to do a store BOM? You have the ability to say, yep, I always want to do a store BOM. And then view info, including the part item. So if you view info, now you can see the part item. So if I have a generic, it's got 5, 6, 20 different part items that are related to it, such as from the configs. I can see all that in one view. So enough of me talking at the moment, and we'll talk a little bit more about the futures in a minute, but I'll stop sharing and turn it over to Hunter. Hunter, you ready?
Yep. Thank you, Paul. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yes, we do.
Alrighty. So for this demonstration in this scenario, I'm going to be starting in Aras, and I'll be working on creating a concept design assembly. And I'll actually be creating 2 assemblies in Aras. I'm going to create a top-level assembly and then a sub-assembly. And with those assemblies, I'm going to start building out the bill of material in Aras and drive that to my CAD tool, in this case SolidWorks, and build out that CAD structure. So I'm going to go ahead and get logged in, and I'm just going to be logging in as the admin for this demonstration, and I'm just going to go right to where my part items exist. So in my parts, I do have some parts that are already existing, these parts with the prefix of CD, my concept design parts. So these parts were registered and stored through the connector. So what I want to do is actually create a new assembly and start building out a bill of material from Aras. So again, these parts are registered, stored, so they have CAD files and CAD documents. These new assemblies that I'm creating will not have any CAD documents or CAD files yet. So I'm going to create a new part, and this is going to be a server assigned part number. And I'm going to call this, this is going to be a sub-assembly, this first one here. So we'll just call it a motor assembly. We'll just say something like motor assembly Pro 2. And this is going to be the type of assembly. And I can fill in some other property information. Maybe this is for a higher rated RPMs. And I'll go to my relationship tab and start adding some of those components. So I'm going to go to my parts. We'll search on those concept design parts, and I'm going to add everything from this bearing to the wires in this motor. Let's see from here. And so there's that. And I'm just going to hit done. So I have this sub-assembly, but what I want to do is create another assembly for the top level. So let's do that now. And this is going to be for rotary tool. Also call this rotary tool Pro 2. Again, this is going to be an assembly. Created motor. And now I'm going to add that sub-assembly that I had just created. So let's look for that here. Motor assembly Pro 2. But I also want to add some other components to this top level assembly. And I'm going to add from this tool holder to this case. And then we'll do this case too. And then I'm going to hit done. So again, the parts that I had just added to this top level in this sub-assembly already have, these parts in here already have CAD documents and were already registered. So these do have CAD files. These 2 assemblies that I just created, again, these don't have any CAD documents. There's no native CAD file for this. So that's what this bomb to CAD feature is going to do for me. So I've created this, I've built this out, everything looks good, property information looks fine. I'm going to select on this, these 3 dots here, and go right to my Essig PLM bomb to CAD. So in order for this to work, I do have to be logged in to the CAD tool that I'm using and connected to the correct database. So I'll select on that. It's going to take me right to SolidWorks. So SolidWorks right now is working on creating that CAD structure and creating those CAD files. And you can see in the model tree at the left, it's already pulled in that that part number that was generated from Aras and through a method that I have set up. It's pulling it into SolidWorks. It's generating that file and creating that CAD structure based on how I've built it from Aras. So in the model tree, again, you can see all those parts coming in. There's that sub-assembly, so that's also having the CAD structure built. And so I'll let this generate, and then I'll step through some of the other enhancements using this assembly here. So when this is finished, again, I created those part items in Aras, but I haven't actually linked any CAD files to it. So I do need a register to link the CAD to those part items. So the connector is going to let me know that it created the assembly. And so right now, the way I have my parts set up is that they're not constrained or saved to any origin. So they're kind of sitting out in space right now. So as a CAD designer, I could come in here and start constraining these items together. But I do have my CAD structure, and all of these items are in here. So one thing I'm going to do real quick is just add a title to my new CAD file. So this is my rotary 2. I just wanted to add that there, and I'm going to register this. So I'm going to select on register. And again, some of these components are all already registered, so they'll come in as blue. And I can see those 2 items, those 2 assemblies that I need to link. So I'll search for those part numbers. So the 144. Let's see, rotary tool. Here's the first one. Here's my second one. All right, so I linked those CAD files. So when I hit register, those CAD documents will be created. There's one more thing that I want to do. When one of these parts was initially registered, I didn't actually touch the configuration. So I'm just going to do that here. So one of the different ways that I can manage my configuration part numbers is what I'm going to do here is take the generic number and actually just add the configuration name to that generic part number. So that's just one of the new ways that I can manage my part number for configurations. There's, of course, many different ways, but in this case, I'm just going to do that. So assign family part number, and you can see it's taking that generic name and just tagging on the configuration name. So that looks good. I think I linked everything together. Everything looks good. CAD structure from the bill of materials. So I'm just going to select register here. So I'm linking those CAD files to the document and then creating my CAD document. And so I'm just going to store those CAD files. So I'm going to hit yes here. Hit store. And then one of the things you'll notice is when I hit store, I actually wasn't prompted to store BOM. So that's just another one of those enhancements. The store BOM was automatically prompted after I had stored. So I'll just go ahead and store the bill of material here. And then I'm going to jump back to Aras and just show that I now have my CAD document, my native CAD file. And if I open up this CAD document, I can see that CAD structure now. So all of this was done because of the bill of material that I was able to create in Aras and then generate and bring over to my CAD tool. There are a few more things that I want to do with this assembly before I take my concept design part number and then re-register to a production part number. I want to change some of the quantities, the quantity count for the subassembly. So I have these wires in this motor and this subassembly. I actually don't want to control this by each. I want to change the unit of measure and have this particular part controlled by PLM. So you can imagine maybe I buy these copper wires in bulk, and I don't want the instance count to be controlling what it shows here. So I'm going to open up this part, and I'm going to change that unit of measure to, we'll just say inches. I'll go back to my bill of material here, and I'm going to change this to, I didn't refresh. There we go. So I'm going to change this to 14 and just hit done there. So now that's 14. I'm going to jump back to SolidWorks, and I'm going to open up that subassembly. It's read only, and I want to make some changes to this. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to lock this top level assembly. And before I make any changes, I'm just going to jump to the settings and show where that resource setting exists here. So it's this one kind of in the middle here, BOM quantity driven by. So as Paul kind of explained the different options here, I'm using PLM accept each. So I'm only controlling items that are marked as each for my CAD, and then PLM is controlling everything else. I can change this to just be CAD, so that's typical connector behavior, out-of-the-box behavior, just controlling it by instance count. Or I could just have this strictly PLM, so PLM just controls everything. I'm going to keep it as PLM accept each, and I'm going to actually insert another component real quick, just to show the instance count will change for other items. So we'll select that item, drag and drop that in there. My assembly's out in space there, but you can see that it's here. And I'm going to store this. Update my bill of material. So again, the automatically prompting for store BOM. And you can see I'm updating this item that's marked as each, and the connector's not touching the wires in this motor. I want to keep that as inches. I want the quantity controlled by PLM. So it's remaining 14. And I'm just going to store that. So that was successful. I'm going to close this and back to my assembly here. I'm going to go back to Aras and just refresh that and show that here. So everything looks good here. There's also one more thing I'm going to do when it comes to quantity for the top level assembly, and I'm going to focus on one of these parts, and it is the cable in this assembly. So I'm going to jump back over to my assembly here, and I'm going to open up that cable. So I have different configurations for this cable. It's all right, open this read only. And what I want to do is actually show the mapping for the part BOM. So I'm going to be handling and managing the quantity for this cable a little bit differently. I want to control this by the BOM quantity property that's in the properties of this file. But before I do that, I'm going to jump back to the assembly because I want to re-register this this cable. I registered the parts or the configurations to different part items. I actually want to unregister that and then have them all be assigned to the same part item, so I can roll up that quantity in my assembly. So we'll go to the family table, and you can see that these are assigned to another part item. I'm going to unregister that. Again, this is just breaking the link from the CAD file to that other part item. And I'm just going to copy this. And I want these to report to the same part. And I'm just going to select register there. That looks good. Let's go ahead and store that. Or oops, I just unregistered, so I don't need to store that actually. And I'm going to go back to this, or oops, going too quick here. I'm going to go to my file properties. I forgot to change the quantity here. So this is that part BOM quantity. So the connector is going to look at this property that I'm creating to map to that quantity into my bill of material. So I'm going to just use length, and then let's say 12 for the value, and then I'll identify that quantity property as the length. I'll make another one here. And we'll say this is 24. Again, I want to choose length. Keep typing too quick here. And let's say, we'll just say 32. Let's say length. So I hit OK there. Yep. I do want to store this because I made some changes to the file. Hit store. And I'm going to jump back to that assembly. So I unregistered this, assigned it to the same part number. I have changed some of the quantity counts in the properties. And again, I don't quite remember if I showed it, so I'll show it again. I'm pointing to CAD file to part BOM. So I'm mapping that quantity to the part BOM item type. So right now it's just marked as 12, but I want to add another configuration to this part to kind of roll up that quantity. So let's go to assembly, insert component. And what is that? Component number 144. Oh, not 144. 134. So 134. And let's change this. We'll say the red configuration here. So you can imagine maybe I'm building out a frame or using this to build, some different wiring. I want to add up and roll up these wire lengths to my quantity. So that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and just store this. Maybe change to that assembly. Hit store there. I'm going to store the bill of material. So now if I look at that quantity count, you can see that it rolled up that number. So my quantity is now 44. And I'll just go ahead and hit store. I'll keep that in session. Go back to this. You can see that quantity count for that cable, 44 in Aras. So that's just a different way that I can map to the quantity property on my part BOM. So I've managed quantity. I changed some items or quantity count on the subassembly, the top level assembly. All this looks good to me. So what I want to do now is actually change these part numbers to a production part number. So I have this opened up in session. So what I want to do is go to my settings. I want to change my project to my production project for this rotary tool. So I'll hit OK there, close this. I'm going to go to register. And I'm going to, instead of unregister, I'm going to re-register this assembly using this new project with a different part number sequence to a production part number. So let's select mark for re-register. And you'll see it's a different, it's color coded, so it looks a little different from the unregister. But what I want to do here is generate my production part number. So I'm changing it from CD to just rotary tool, RT. So that looks good. I'm going to go to my family table for that configuration there. Copy and paste. And I'm just going to select register here. So instead of just breaking the link from the part item, I'm actually renaming the CAD file as well. So if I go to the CAD document, you can see the new proposed base name. So that's just the difference between unregister and re-register. Re-register will rename that CAD file. So select register. I'll let this go through, and then I'll pull up that assembly in Aras, and we can take a look at that. So re-register this, create those part items. Then I'll jump to store and store those new renamed CAD files. Wait for this to be prompted there. So the registration was successful. So now again, of course, I'll store those CAD files. And then again, just after I select store, the automatically store BOM. So we'll let that come up. And we'll just continue to store this assembly, and I'm finished. So it's cleared for my session now with that new project. If I go back here, I can search for those new parts. And here is that assembly. So here's my new production part number. I have that CAD document and I can start working with this, this new assembly that I have, or I guess re-registered assembly. There's one last thing I want to show, and it's going to be using another assembly that I want to retrieve here. It is going to be this assembly here, this 142. So this is the same assembly, but different, same looking assembly, but different file. So this is using that new resource setting for the generation. So you can see those columns here, the reference generation and current generation. I'm going to retrieve this into my work folder. So I'll open that up in session. So I have this assembly here. I'm going to select my rebuild button. I'll lock it, and you can see that I have an error here. So it looks like a reference is bad. So if I go to my connectors for PLM tab, I can also see those new columns in here. So you can see the reference generation and current generation. So looks like these parts are referencing the first generation, and the current generation in my session is generation 2. So that's where I'll end there. Paul, I don't know if there's more that we should add to, or anything you want to add into I think you explained it pretty well through the slides.
I think we are good
Okay.
for this. So let me one quick second. I'll take it back. Is there anything else? You're done, right?
Yep.
So let me take it back and let's just do that. So just got a few more minutes together. So a couple quick things that I want to just highlight, let you know, and then we'll get. I know there's been some questions. I was trying to answer some of them, and we'll hopefully get to those quickly. If not, I'll definitely follow up on those. But with 10.6, what are some of the things that are coming? 10.6 can be in the year, certainly supporting of SolidWorks 2024. So certainly the platform support. As we indicated, we're evolving the BOM to CAD functionality in terms of some of the things that I highlighted, transformation matrix, template parts, and one of Troy's questions that I was trying to get to is asked about a question regarding, if deriving it from the if I had 100, put 100 quantity as from Aras, how does that handle down to the CAD? So today it is just handling it. You would get it the one model, but it's Troy I'll say mentioned what we're looking at, what's discussing is how to, maybe it's got to be controlled by PLM, and then I want 100 parts. So again, today it's only one part. When I do a BOM to CAD, just get that component. But again, that's certainly one of the things that we're internally discussing. What's the best way? What gives the best functionality to be able to handle that? We've gotten the comments, and yep, I understand, about the connector UI, well, we want certain users to utilize branching. We don't want that to be exposed to everybody. So think of it as like a screen permission. And again, this is something we're working on, but to be able to configure the connector UI to retrieve, store BOM, we're only the 3 settings that they should see, is to be able to do that, apply it to identities. So be able to have the, configure the UI to how you would want to look at it. And a couple other things with global uniqueness, continue down and doing more and more with X-class, supporting of X-classification properties. And again, continuing the performance improvements with every release. And it is a constant issue, not an issue. What we work on is we always going back and refactor coding and always looking at improving the performance of all the functionality that we go through. So the next one, for 2024, what are some of the things that we're looking to, this is sort of a quick high and wide of the, releasing it, the connector, 4 releases. Aras, I believe, is sort of every quarter, the middle month of the quarter. So the goal is for after Aras releases it, such as with 30, is to be able to support it, 1 month later to having a release. So again, this is just a high and wide of our, pros, or what we're sort of like what we did this year for next year also. So what I'd also like to do is we work very closely with Aras, and certainly with Alex. Alex is the MCAD product manager. We have weekly meetings, sometimes bi-weekly meetings, and a lot of the functionality capabilities that we've talked about, certainly around BOM to CAD, which is a favorite of his also, is we discuss it and try to make sure we're all in line. He knows what we're doing, and if we have suggestions, he has suggestions, ideas. So what I'd like to do is maybe take a moment and pass it over to Alex. So certainly, Alex has been a key resource for us, but for everybody, he is sort of one of my main contacts in Aras that we work with on the CAD part. So maybe Alex, if you would like to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I am Alexandre Cadier. I'm based in France, and yeah, so as Aras product manager for CAD integration, so I'm responsible for MCAD integration, and on behalf of the whole product management team at Aras, first I want to express our confidence, as usual, in this new version of Connector 10.5. We believe that all the innovation packet and all the presentation shown presented by Paul and also by Hunters, so all this new release is designed to improve your CAD integration experience and to bring it to another level. We have a lot of customers request this new, let's say, improvement. We have also a lot of customers, very happy customers from Aras using the Essig connectors. So that's why I want to take this opportunity to thank Essig PLM team again, and also thank all the participants for this webinar. So another thing, so as Paul is showing these slides, if you have any proposal or any idea or maybe suggestion related to CAD integration into Aras, so please send me a mail. So I have your mail. I would be very happy to hear from you. Perhaps you have a vision for new features that could make your workflow better, or maybe you have a unique challenge or issue, or so anything. I encourage you to share your idea, no matter how big or small the idea. And yeah, so your input is very important for us. Just drop me a mail. And thank you again, Paul and Hunter, for this great improvement and great presentation. And thank you again for all participants in this webinar.
Thank you very much, Alex. So first and foremost, thank you everybody for attending. And I am going to, if I know, Sarah, you're going to read them off, but I'm just going to go quickly through it. I answered a couple questions. I think everybody sees them, hopefully. But I'm just going to go through quickly. In the BOM to CAD creation, how does it handle quantities? So as I had mentioned, only handles one today. This is one of the things we're looking at as for the enhancement. Is it possible to show the unit of measure in the store BOM window? Yes, I believe so. If you go in the store BOM window, up to the top, right mouse button on the name, quantity, the bar, the columns there, you should see the column chooser and be able to go to the bottom of it and select units, I believe, that you'll see there. That, I believe, will show what you want. The BOM quantity is driven by the config. Does that mean you can register multiple configs to a single part item? Yes. Yes, you can. And the wire, yes, to be able to, to roll up. How's the register handled in the case that I register a part used in multiple assemblies that weren't in session? So I think the question here is if I re-register a component that's used in multiple assemblies, it works, it re-registers and updates it in that session. So that assembly, assembly, the drawing, whatever, it will not automatically, open the assembly for anywhere it's referenced and update it. The parts that are still being used are still in Aras, and those new assemblies those other existing assemblies that aren't in session are not automatically updated. Those would need to be updated. Can bomb order be locked so that when saving changes in the CAD assembly, the order sequence will not change in the Aras bomb? Order be locked. Order be locked. I got to think about that depending on what changes you make to the bomb. But yeah, I think if once I restore bomb, sequence numbers are defined. If I remove it, it's not going to reorder the sequence numbers, but certainly on that one, maybe I just have a quick call on that, and we can, again, we're trying to go through. I apologize because I'm trying to get through these before 12 o'clock. So hopefully I've answered some. Sarah, are there any other questions that?
Yeah, I just got two quick ones here. Is the re-register and unregister available in the Creo connector?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then
and the NX connector and all the connectors, yes.
okay, and then can I configure the new family part number expression setting to generate part numbers based on the parent instance part number instead of the top level generic?
Absolutely. That certainly was one of the driving reasons why, to be able to provide that granularity to it. So yes, instead of always referring back to the generic, I want to look at, as we, maybe as you term it, the instance generic or the generic or the instance generic, and take it from that, or whatever logic that you want to be able to do that.
All right, one more quick one right here. Does the setting for bomb quantity driven by only affect quantity or any other properties on the part?
That's quantity, only the quantity. There are some other resources that that can be utilized for if I don't want to compare certain like changing the name or description or whatever it might be, that might change it. But those have different behaviors. This is if I set it to driven by PLM or by Aras or by CAD, that is what is going to occur. So no, that's it. Only quantity is the answer.
Okay, that's all I have, Paul.
All right, then I think we are done.
All right, well, thanks everyone for attending today's session. I'll make this recording available, so if you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.